support staff.
Good morning, good morning. You're listening live to Intech News Radio, reality radio, where everybody, even you, can be a star. My name is Clinton Parrish, and I want to welcome you to Straight Up the Middle. Straight Up the Middle is where we talk about politics of the day. Now, I don't want to confuse you into think that I actually go down the middle, because I don't. I lean hard to the left. Some would say I'm so far left, I'm actually on your right. If you peek over, you might see the top of my head poking out from around the other side. But be that as it may, I can't do this by myself, so I want to welcome to the show this morning our co-host, Professor Tony Seabrook. Good morning, Professor. How are you?
Man, good morning. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while.
Well, I am glad to have you. You know, because you represent a rare species today. Someone who professes to actually be a real, living, live conservative. There are very few that hold on to that, you know. So I'm happy to have you back here, Professor, and Happy New Year to you. It is wonderful to be here, but I'm glad you could be with us so we could talk about some of the stuff. There's a lot. Now, I was out riding my bike this morning, and I was going over topics we talked about, and they started talking about Sidney Poitier. But how could I do the show without talking about, you know, what was it, Mr. Tibbs? Look who's coming to dinner, and Heat of the Night, and I didn't realize he was as far back into the 60s and late 50s as he was.
With the late 50s, but certainly, I mean, everything about him is all 60.
Yeah, I think he did his first movie in 1950, if somebody said it correctly. But one of the key things I did find out is, and I like information, is, you know, he was thrown out of his first time he showed up to audition and be part of getting involved in acting for two reasons. He was tone deaf, and he could not read. He was illiterate. And then he had the thick Bahamian accent to go with it. And just imagine, he didn't let that hold him back. He you know, stepped back, got himself together, and so later led on to
you glossed over the obvious thing. I mean, him being black.
Listen, you Republicans can confuse Democrats into defining everything by race. Everything isn't just what you hear.
We're talking the 50s. It was only two colors.
Well,
only two.
Now the ironic thing, if you go back to Look Who's Coming to Dinner, there's that moment in the movie where the father asks him, the young lady he's dating, what about your children? Do you think about the problems your interracial marriage is going to create for your children? And I don't know that that's that far off from today, that people think about the problems, and that they're real problems left that have to be dealt with. So when you say back then, that was a shocking thing to me, listening to the issues, you know, how people get treated, things of that nature. So anyway, with that being said, just want to take a moment to recognize Sidney Poitier and his passing. But Professor, anyway, so listen, they hear me every week. So listen, I'm open. What is on your mind this morning that we could edify our listeners with?
Topics.
All right.
Let's just jump right into it.
I'll give you a softball. You know, the jobs report, the economic numbers, you know.
We have to start there. It all starts there.
Now, you know, let me so I know you hadn't been here for a while. I'm going to reorient you.
Okay.
Anytime I go along with something, you know I've got an angle set up. So go right ahead, Professor. Lead the way.
And I think I have a curveball.
Okay, go ahead. Right. Economic numbers. What's on your mind?
Anyway, 199,000 jobs were created in December. Far short of what they expected.
Projected was like 400 and some odd numbers they thought they would get.
Right. So we went right in half. Still, unemployment fell 3 points, right? Or 0.3. 3.9%, right? That's a good thing.
All right.
But what I noticed, and to all, just to reacquaint you how I do things, let me give you the site that I use. I don't just pick numbers out. I'm not like Clint and roll them off and they sound good.
What do you mean by that, Professor?
So, you know, I always go to the labor statistics, the BEA.gov, basically. So anyway, what I noticed in the jobs report is what sectors increased. And to me, it's counterintuitive. In this COVID, in this pandemic, leisure and hospitality led the way in job growth. Leisure and hospitality.
COVID, you seem to think that would go down.
Exactly. So it's kind of counterintuitive. That's what I said. So Not surprised, professional services increase, manufacturing, transportation, warehouse, right? And one would think, as I read those sectors off, one would think, and I'm not polarizing, but you think that would fare well for African Americans.
The leisure?
Leisure, transportation. I know a lot of truck drivers. A lot of my homies are truck drivers. My son.
Okay.
Warehouse, manufacturing.
Right.
Construction.
Mm-hmm.
Good, right?
Right.
But let's look down into the weeds. And I always love when I come across these things. And it is how I started my research. But as I'm reading the demographics, so they break it out, the unemployment. And I noticed the terminology they use. They say unemployment for adults, breaking out 3.2%. White men, 3.2. I think white women, 3.6.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Then they say, well, the jobless unemployment, then they start with teens. Then they throw blacks in there. I'm like, but what's the difference between unemployment and jobless? That's rhetorical. But my point is, they seem to always make that distinction when it comes to African Americans, as they call it, blacks. And I know that's the more inclusive term. But here's the thing that jumps out. I said 3.2 for white men, 3.6 for white women, 7.1% unemployment, as they call it, jobless for blacks. In this market, where these sectors of hiring are booming, leading the way, the unemployment rate is down. Once again, African Americans have the lowest or the highest unemployment rate with this very well popular 86, 7, 91 million vote president. But why is it that, again, we're sucking air when it comes to that? But that's rhetorical.
Well, you came loaded. Wow. Hey, where's Pat at? With the love talking, the soulful, sounds of, hey.
But there was another interesting point that they called out, and we're talking about the comparison. So and this is the website. This is ba.gov. In February of 2020.
Hold on for Professor real quick, and I just want to let our viewers know, listeners know, we're aware of the sound on the microphones, and our technicians are working on that, so just bear with us. But we're going to continue with our discussion, and we'll get that resolved very shortly. Go ahead, Professor.
Okay. They had a comparison up from February of 2020, so I think they jumped a month ahead, but they're showing in February of 2020, the unemployment rate was at 3.5%. And the jobless or the unemployment numbers were 5.7.
Okay, 5.7 for who again?
For the unemployed persons in 2020.
Okay,
it was 5.7
year to year. So your year to year comparison.
Right. And the unemployment rate was 3.5%.
Okay.
So in this economy now,
you're getting somewhere, I think, with this, aren't you? But you're getting somewhere. You're getting somewhere with this.
Exactly.
Well, where are we getting to? What are we getting to?
Well, this whole what Biden's supposed to have been doing, this economy, I'm hearing is the best in 40 years. I don't know how they extracted that particular point, but once again, these numbers, when you look in the weeds, they're favoring African Americans.
They're not.
They make up a large part.
Well, okay, so you walk right into what I expected. As a good conservative, you walk right in and launch this thing into some racial division discussion about blacks and whites and jobs. So let me just address it for a couple things. So when they talk about unemployed, that means people who are actually looking to get work. So I'm not upset when I hear a black 7.1% number. That means that they're actually tracking us, they're counting us, and that we're engaged in the process of trying to get into the workforce. That's one. But if you don't try to get into the workforce, it's not like they keep counting you. They drop you off.
But after a certain point when you get in that category.
Exactly. So I would say to you, the reason that other number looks so good is you have so many people who've made it clear, and I'm going to not use overt racial terms, but say that are non-African American who've decided I'm just not going to work anymore. You know what? I'm going to go one family income. I'm going to, we're going to make it on our part-time job. They've kind of pulled themselves out of, quote unquote, the workforce, and it gives you this number. Something I'll say that Donald Trump was good at, and he really pointed out, is when we hear the unemployment rate, it's truly not the unemployment rate. It is the I can't find a job rate. Because those are the people that they're counting who want to work, who are looking for a job. It doesn't really count all the people who are out of work. The other thing I'll say about this and why this is not really a hanger on Biden. Biden was not elected to address economic issues. In fact, the country was on good economic footing.
Or now you say we were, but all before.
Yeah. No, I'm not. No. Yeah, they give you a stock market going through the roof. What are you talking about? Credit card analysis.
Well, these tax cuts.
My neighbor with the new stuff, saying he's rich. All right, so, but I just think that that's not why Biden was elected. So I think pointing at those numbers, I don't think is a factor that goes back to Biden. The thing that goes back to Biden are those COVID numbers. So even though you're right, now I would expect by February, those unemployment numbers will get readjusted somewhat. And we'll get, to move to 240 or 230. And, I don't think long term. Economically, the big thing for Joe Biden is really gas prices. That number there, it affects so many people so specifically because the unemployment numbers don't really mean anything to me. If I got a job, I got a job. If I don't have a job, I don't have a job. And the number doesn't change whether I have a job or don't have a job. So I don't know that that's going to be is such a detrimental issue for Joe Biden as we sit right now. But I would think that those numbers they're not far off a lot of the numbers we got under Donald Trump, though. So I don't know that we're that.
The difference is he was so bad for everything. I don't know what demographic, well, not demographic, I don't know what area that Democrats painted him in a positive light. Now, some now may say, well, like you, deflect, okay, well, these numbers aren't bad. That's not why he was voted in because of the economy. But that wasn't the tone this past election.
All right, let me go. So thankfully, you are enough of a historian to appreciate this. Reagan was voted in for economic reasons. No doubt, no question about it.
After who?
After Jimmy Carter.
Right.
After Jimmy, he was voted in for economic reasons, without any doubt. Biden was voted in because he's not Donald Trump.
Okay.
Almost nothing about him except the fact that he's not Donald Trump got him in the office. Now, I don't know if that'll keep him in office next time. That one piece will keep him in office, but. With that being said, though, I just think that we have to look at this. I think we lose credibility when you don't look at the numbers objectively in both ways.
Well, now you mentioned gas prices, but there's also the thing of Tyson, and I just saw stat this morning. Tyson Meats, largest.
Now I will say my chicken. Now y'all messing.
Exactly.
You start
chicken going up 12%
that is racial.
for poultry.
That is racial. Because in certain households, more chicken gets eaten than other places.
Pork going up 25%.
I won't say the location, but my order 10 crispy fried chicken wings has gone up to $27. They tried the market price thing that we were just yelling and screaming.
Oh my goodness.
Until they said, okay, it's $27. So this is what we're gonna do. Listen, everybody, I understand that we're still having some issue with the mics. We're gonna take a break a little bit early. Take our break. I'm gonna let the professor off the hook. He walked right into that trap. And I just need to get his mind right for the rest of the show. Let him know nothing has changed. And we're gonna come back, get our microphone situation worked out. We come back, we're gonna talk about some other stuff. We're gonna talk about Biden's agenda for this year, and some other things. The voting rights bill is gonna be coming back up, and kind of whose strategy going into the midterms. Hang in there with us. This is In Touch News Radio, reality radio. Everybody's a star. We'll be right back after this break.
Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for you. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. everything gon' be okay. Call Ricky, he coming. He taking care of state of Florida. Grab a pen of sundown. 184-361 Rick. That's 184-361-425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361 Rick. Call Ricky, ask Ricky. Is a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and getting you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361 Rick. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
You've been injured. You deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Paris from the Law Office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
All right, good morning again. We're back here live on N6 News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. I am joined this week by our co-host, Professor Tony Seabrook. Professor, it's been a while since we've seen you. I know that you've taken a step back from regularly being on the show, doing your academic work, working on your PhD and other matters. But it's good to have you back, though, and I'm happy that you could be with us today. So. We need her.
I did kind of miss you guys, but I tell you what, I wasn't feeling as dejected as most Republicans were feeling. And by the way, just so that the people know, I'm no longer a Republican. So Clint said it right. I'm conservative, but
I'll tell you if you're Republican. I'll tell you if you're Republican or not. The evidence will be in the book. We'll know. But so one of the things that we just did on January 5th, as you all can appreciate, I am a Kappa. We are continuing our Founders Day week celebration of January 5th, 1911, when 10 young men on the campus of Indiana University decided to form a fraternity for the purpose of bringing together men of common character and under the principle of achievement under the leadership of Elder Watson Diggs. And we are celebrating 111 years of achievement. Now, most people know that there are a number of fraternities, the Divine Nine. But let me just say that I think our fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, is a fabric of American society and a major contributor to the progress that we've made over the years, not individually in our race, but in America in general. And I'll tell you, Tony, something most people don't know. Our fraternity was not created or founded on any racial criteria. It was always open from day one to all men who wanted to be members. And we are proud of our diversity within the organization because we don't have a racial test. You don't have to have that. And a lot of organizations had to go back and take that out of their founding, but that was the thing that drove the founding, was the issues related to race, and they did not want that to be a factor. So it was founded without any racial dynamics, even though we're 99% African American.
I was about to say that's a little known fact, but I don't know any non-African American.
I do. They show up and they can shimmy and twirl the cane just as good as anybody else.
Really?
So, all right. With that being said, so that was January 5th. We had a significant day on January 6th where they revisited what happened last year, a year ago. I don't know in the rank and file American if January 6th is that big an issue. And do you think that's because of what we're dealing with COVID? I just don't think about it every day. The country almost fell on January 6th.
Well, that was... No, I agree. I don't think it's a big deal to the average American, but I think to the emotional, the uninformed, and the base on both sides, that hardcore base, It's certainly a day that they're not going to forget. I don't think it's a big deal. I know you're alluding to the anniversary, the speeches, which were
right. And then so that brings me to my next piece of it was when they did have the kind of commemorative event, and Biden gave his speech, and then Trump responded to that speech. There was only one Republican that came to the Senate to attend on that, and I thought that was quite unfortunate, because whether you agree with one side or the other, I guess if you agree that it was a significant day, you show up. If you think it's not, and that it's just being politicized to make it into something, you don't.
Well, I think there's another way to look at that.
Okay.
They show up. It's already politicized. And Biden and Kamala Harris' speech showed the essence of why they wanted to do it. They never mentioned Trump's name, but it was always the former president. So why would Republicans show up? It's almost like Republicans coming out, and this is to a fault, when they didn't have a strategy for how to attract African-American voters. And a lot of them pretty much said, I mean, what's the use? Why am I going to go? They're going to make me to be the villain. My presence is going to, inflame something. And I think that's probably most of them to go. Now, Liz Cheney's already, her numbers are so bad, it doesn't matter if she goes or not anyway.
The one of the things I thought is, when I think about, and I know you're not a Republican, but let me just talk about, Republican principles that I thought were always been so powerful. And if I could get a little bit more mic volume, just a little bit more, is Republicans seem to always have their hands around individual rights.
Right.
We're for individual rights, just not the individual rights of others. And that's how they were able to do stuff related to fighting racial oppression. Keep that going. Was they were for individual rights, but not others' individual rights.
Okay, that's a slippage. But go ahead.
It's true though. We're for individual rights, but we don't want you to have the same rights we have. That we're for our individual rights. We're for law and order. We want the law enforced as strictly as we can on you, but we don't want that same law and order when it applies to us. And that's kind of how they excuse breaking the law on January the 6th. It's not really breaking the law because it was us. It wasn't Black Lives Matter running over the police, storming the Capitol. It was a good
looting
America.
billions of dollars in damage.
Right. It was
to
good
people who had
America.
nothing to do
There
with
was
it.
not those people that were, that got somebody killed and beating up cops. But we're for law and order, though, as it applies to other people, not us. And the one that I thought they had their hands around with a lock fist was patriotism. We're more American than you. We wrap our arms around our military. We defend our borders. We're more patriotic than you.
Well,
and I think that's the line the Democrats are taking on this. I think the Democrats are using January 6th to cut underneath the hold Republicans have had on those platforms. To cut underneath. You can't be for law and order. You were involved in a cop, getting killed, or person getting, storming the Capitol, breaking the law, and then you're helping hide each other and make sure you don't get prosecuted. You're for individual freedoms, but here you are trying to stop Congress from actually in the Constitution. So I think that's really what's at play here. And when the Republicans do what they did by not showing up, I think they play into the hands of that.
Spoken like a true left.
I told you I'm all the way over, I'm down.
Yes.
I'm all the way on your right.
To our listening
But
audience,
you don't think
that's
that
what
plays
he
into
meant.
Democrats' hands?
That plays into leftist ideology. That plays into that base, and that's how that base thinks. So let me give my take on it. You're right. Republicans and conservatives, I think in this case, we're kind of one and the same.
Yes.
We look at ourselves as traditionalists. We believe in those founding principles. We believe in faith. We believe in individual liberties. We believe in those things. Democrats, on the other hand, have always come from an out-group type of thing. They're good when they're united, out-groups, whether it's BLM, it's trans agenda, the LGBT, all those out-groups. When you guys are united around a cause, you guys are effective. as we look at what happened or what didn't happen with this anniversary of January 6th, I think it's the same thing. The protest was just like a BLM, and I can say sponsored event by a lot of the congressional Democrats. They had no problems with all of the rioting, all of the looting. As a matter of fact, you allude to how a person was killed, and you laid it at the hands of the protesters. I'm not here to debate that because she did die. It was as a result.
Oh, I was talking about the couple of cops, and there were 2 people had medical incidents because of.
Well, but only one person died.
You know, I think 4 people died. The cop that was sprayed with the bear spray, he eventually died the following day.
Oh, okay.
And then there were 2 other individuals that passed away. And then
Air
the
Force
lady,
veteran.
she got shot.
Right. She was on
the ex-military.
But I think, weren't there just as many? I think I saw 4 names listed and also on my right-leaning boards, social media, of people that died over the course of all of the riots from BLM.
Whoa. Now, you're saying BLM riots or riots where BLM attended?
Well, you can make the distinction. BLM riots is how I'm going to term it, just how they term the terrorist attacks. It wasn't so much terrorist attacks, but my point is they had the same type of passion behind it. BLM went behind, faucet, flamed this whole thing, especially after George Floyd's death.
I actually believe Russians were actually involved with the BLM stuff, but that's another issue.
It could be. But the point is, I even think January 6th, the protest was almost not commendable, laudable, until it got to a certain point. Certainly at the point where...
Now, listen, you mean over when they were doing the speeches or when they get to the Capitol?
Before... not from understanding. It transpired, but there were several thousands of people milling around, right? And then I think they said 2,000 of them flanked off, and that's, as they approached the Capitol building, that's the gist, and that was the group of the protest of the attack on the Capitol. Out of the 700,000, there were like 2,000, right? Of that group that actually attacked the Capitol, because 700 were charged, right?
Yes.
760.
Right. Well, that 700 people have been charged so far.
Right. But the way you describe it as if, okay, this is somehow how the Democrats are going to get their foot in the door by somehow painting where Republicans have lost grip on their traditional stance. I don't see that happening. That only makes sense to liberal Democrats.
So when you have the actual event on the 6th, to not have any Republicans but Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney sitting there, I think leaves the door open to look unpatriotic. But we got a caller calling in this morning. Good morning, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Right.
And the damage even calls for our democracy and into the capital. I mean, you have people terrified of running and telling them, hey, shoot, man, shoot. And it just shows that how a justice system is just really flawed.
Okay. Well, Carl, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate that very much. I hope you continue to listen to us. Callers are our alleged trucker on the road. And, in fact, Carl has been in the studio and proved that he is a trucker. We've heard his horn blow before. So thank you very much for that, Carl. So, Professor, Carl's saying, listen, what's with Republicans not even acknowledging that this was an attack on our democracy?
I don't think that Republicans are denying. We're just not willing to go out like you guys. Oh, this was like the worst. We've never seen such a thing, because I just think it's interesting how Democrats and liberals gloss over. There's more fear in the average American when BLM, when there's a riot, because now I got to go and protect my business.
No, you know why?
Why?
It's black people. That's what it is.
Well,
that's what I was saying earlier.
How many businesses were destroyed with the attack on the Capitol? Just tell me how many looting, how much was destroyed? How many neighboring businesses in Washington, D.C., and there are a lot of them, were destroyed? None.
Well, there are no businesses between where they were, the protest area, where they had the speech at.
But when you got that many people, you can certainly get to businesses. How many businesses
there
were?
Are really though. You're in a government secured area. There are no business. You have vendors with you're surrounded by gigantic block-sized government buildings.
Right. What I'm saying is, with the number of people, if they were 7,000
let me call it quick. Look, those folks were not going to wander out in D.C. and start up anything. They were not going to do that.
But here's
trust me, it wouldn't have went well.
I know. I know where you're going with this, but the point is still there.
It would not have gone well.
They took their issue to the place where they had the issue.
Let's assume, though, if they're successful, where do we sit as a country? Think about that. Their goal was to stop Congress. I want to hold on to that thought while we take this break, and we come back. Which is, what if on January 6th they had been successful? You listen to In Touch News Radio, Reality Radio. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Cancer affects everyone, but minority populations are often hit hardest. Moffitt Cancer Center is working to address the barriers that keep some groups from getting the care they need. African Americans develop cancer at a younger age, have more aggressive cancers, and experience worse outcomes than the general population.
While cancer treatment is evolving with precision medicine, who is being left behind? We know for many decades that some groups experience a greater burden of cancer than others. We can prevent it, we can detect it early. It's very beatable when we find it early. I have worked with cancer patients during their treatment. All cancer patients have courage.
So my treatment was about 18 months. I had 3 cancers and 7 surgeries. But my son told me, like, Mom, you're the strongest person that I know. Moffitt saved my life.
During COVID-19, Moffitt is a safe place for your cancer care. Call now to schedule an appointment.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a good friend of mine.
It's the Dash and Dale Day.
Put your hands together.
Jazz at Miss Connie's house. On In Touch Radio.
Hello, Tampa Bay. This is Ainsley Doe with Florida Realty Unlimited. As a broker with 15 years experience and a veteran of the Navy, I do understand your needs. Real estate prices are up. So if you're thinking of selling your home, call me for a free market analysis. If you're planning to buy a home, please call me for a free buyer's consultation. For more information, call Ainsley Doe at 813-546-1954. Once again, the number is 813-546-1954. Or check my ad out in the In Touch You.
All right, we're back live in Touch News Radio, Reality Radio, where everybody could be a star. Okay, so you may have heard some of the banter going on here in the studio, but listen, this is a real show. When I say reality, it's reality. This is really what it's like when two people get together and talk on the back patio, the back of a pickup truck, over a cup of coffee. It's no different than what we're doing here in the studio, and we are always pleased to have you be a part of that, of our authentic, real discussion. Some people wonder, Professor, sometimes, well, what do y'all talk about when you're not on the air? We talk about the same thing we're talking about when we're on the air. This is just regular stuff that we hope people around this country engage in discussion about and find better understanding, if not some common ground. So we were just bantering about January 6th, and it is so much. I mean, it's so much. I'm trying to figure out, is it going to be like Pearl Harbor where we commemorate it every year?
Stop it.
And let me go back to what I said, because when Pearl Harbor happened, the goal was to destroy America. The Sixth Fleet was attacked so that America could no longer do what it had been doing. January 6th, the goal when they got to the Capitol, not when these people woke up in the morning, I think a very small group of people looking for meaning in their life had nefarious intentions, if they could pull it together.
Man, this is getting really
But
dramatic.
once they got there, they took advantage of the opportunity of the emotions of the other people who were there, who were simply trying to voice their objection to what they thought was being done wrong, and they were led down this path. And so now we get to the Capitol, and the goal when they entered the building. What was your understanding of their goal when they entered the building?
Oh, they were there to cause havoc, and I think
Stop
they wanted to
the
instill
election.
fear.
No. They wanted to stop Congress from carrying out its function. Stop.
That's not to destroy the country.
Well, yeah, it does, because you don't then move to your new president. So what do you have now? You have an old president whose tenure in office has ended.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a new president who does not get confirmed. What do you have?
You still have a president.
No, you don't. No, he cannot.
But you're talking about a technicality that China that does not have anything besides a paper appeal.
There is no mechanism for a president at the end of his term to continue until some other thing happens. There's nothing. The only thing happens is the timely swearing in of the new president. If you do not, you don't have a president.
Okay, so what about the whole president pro tem? What about those things?
Oh yeah, they default, but they don't become president.
But you guys are making it seem like we don't have anything like if it didn't happen then, the country goes into default. We're going to be invaded at 3:00 p.m. If we don't get a president, we're going to be invaded. Stop it already.
How about this? And you walk right into it. We'd already been invaded. They didn't have to come from outside. They were already in America, and they were trying to stop the president. So, all right. So you had another point you wanted to make about
because
this.
along these things, and again, there's always going to be a difference how we look at it. My thing with the attack on the Capitol, not going to condone it. It is the same way Democrats and liberals shrugged their shoulders when people were looting for no good reason. We understood that there may have been, a death, an unarmed black man shot. No one ever says that's not a big deal.
Okay.
But Democrats, for the longest during the summers, when you can clearly see rioting, were saying it's mostly a peaceful demonstration. It's like, seriously?
Yeah, because that was an attack on government. It's civil.
But here's the thing. This is why people get pissed. So a government building was vandalized. Congress has the lowest rating. Like, who really cares? We drag them through the mud Monday through Friday, but now we're going to act like because their office was vandalized, oh, my God, we don't have a president. We're going to be invaded. It's so dramatic.
Well, you got processes in place. And,
right.
and the specifics of this was Mike Pence is certifying the election.
Mm-hmm.
That's specifically.
But see, we've conceded that. We've conceded that they wanted to stop the process, but that does not mean we get all dramatic and go because he was not confirmed. And if he was not confirmed, that now America is now somehow a weakened country. That's the dramatization of it. That's what they sought to
absolutely,
do.
because I think that if you go back in history, rarely does the first time you try something work. But a lot of people think that, when the Christmas addicts who stepped out in the middle of the road and got shot. That was the first time that the colonists tried to figure out a way to separate themselves from Britain. That wasn't. And so if you look at this as a first attempt, it came really close. That's first attempt, because this really was not really organized. But you give me some strategies.
Because it wasn't, like you said, when they left home.
They were trying to. I agree with
exactly.
you.
So,
and I don't think when you talk about these Black Lives Matter,
that's design.
Let me back up. There are some ill-willed people in this country that specialize in protesting. All they need is a location. Forget the issue.
And a van and some paid signs.
Whatever they be. Right. And I think this is what got drifted into this dynamic is you had someone else there with a different mindset about how we go about what we do as a country in our business. And Republicans got taken advantage of, and they're paying a big price for this. Other thing, keep in mind now, you mentioned about the Capitol. One of our listeners up in South Carolina, that's South Carolina, your neck of the woods.
Yep, born and raised.
Just sent me a message, as they will when they hear, people, saying stuff to me that they don't like. Just saying that, listen, remind the professor that this was not the first time that the Capitol was attacked. And that's all I'm trying to say is how serious do we need to take it to prevent the next one? And, yet the first, 1993, the first time they attacked the World Trade Center. And then they came back later, and they succeeded. And so I'm just trying to make sure, do we rev this up to the right level? And do Republicans put themselves in a bad place by not looking like they're defending America?
Well, here's the thing. Again, you're not going to change the Democrats' mind about that. That's what they need. They need to somehow show that, see, I told you, those Republicans, they don't care about your future. They don't care about your well-being. It's all about them. They don't have the traditional mindset when, in fact, Republicans and conservatives do.
So why is this not being lauded more by Republicans as something that they need to deal with?
Well, what's the what?
The what is that were a group of people that tried to stop Congress from the peaceful transition.
But what Republican has not said that?
By not coming to that event.
See, I thought lawyers weren't supposed to do that. I thought you have to kind of prove something. Didn't you what do they thought I could jump to? Don't you have to kind of prove something? You just tied that together. Because I didn't show up means that I don't agree.
I mean, think about it. If you have a State of the Union address and no Republican came, it makes them look like, hey,
Clint's pulling this legal thing on us. I'm telling you,
hey,
because I don't. this is all legal speak. Here's the thing: Republicans have been on record about, and like Carl said,
they're on record about what? Say it. What is
it? That this was an attack. It shouldn't have happened. That they, I can't even find the word. But anyway, they don't agree with it. My point is, and to Carl's point, Ted Cruz, who is somehow looking to be now the favorite, went on and said it was a terrorist attack, and then he backtracked that.
We backtracked because Tucker Carlson
exactly gave him the business about it, called him on it.
So which is it?
Which is it?
I mean, think about this. He can't even say, hey, domestic terrorists attacked our Capitol and not be attacked by Republicans.
He can say it, but he just tried to speak out of both sides of his mouth. We see this all the time.
So which should he say it and be accountable for that, or should he be like Tucker Carlson?
He's already proven he's a typical Republican, which is why I left the party, because I'm like, okay, see, you guys are just a part of the process. You guys say one thing to the camera, say another thing to your supporters, because he knows that he's trying to run. Ted Cruz is going to throw his.
I think the bigger problem for Ted Cruz is
he's Ted Cruz.
Donald Trump called his wife ugly, and he didn't do anything about it, man. So men everywhere still shaking their head like, man, how you call the man wife ugly?
See?
And then you over there,
there it is,
asking for his autograph, man. Okay,
here's the real reason why they did it. It's our next point. The real reason why all this, you needed to make this case, is because what's behind all of this. We'll talk about it in the next section, right?
Wow, that sounds like a transition, man.
Voting rights. That's what it is. It's all about voting.
All right, we're going to take this next break. And when we come back, we got all our technical issues worked out, so Daryl can sit back and relax and bring your blood pressure down, Daryl. DJ CEO is hyped up and all on us. But we come back, we'll talk about the Biden agenda for 2022, and I see what the strategy is for why you bring up voting rights as we do this. In Touch News Radio, reality radio, everybody can be a star. We'll be right back after this message.
In Touch Radio.
This is Joel Sylvain
and Kevin Carr,
and we're with Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives,
influencers
share how they make money, how they attract power, and how they earn respect. Come join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Power Moves
on In Touch Radio.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for you. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay. Call Ricky, he coming. He taking care of state of Florida. Grab a pen or sundown 184-361-RICK. That's 184-361-7425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, push your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky, ask Ricky is a legal and medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and getting you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7425. Ricky. Ask Ricky.
All right, we're back live on Texas News Radio, reality radio where everybody can be a star. I'm here with Professor Tony Seabrook, who's nice enough to come in this morning. I know he hasn't been able to make it in, and man, like old times, man, the time is just flying by, and I don't want to waste it, yucking it up. But so we're into 2022, and my first thought was, okay, well, we need to get the Democrats focused. We need to get focused, and I was happy to hear some comments about getting the voting rights bill back into the forefront as we go into 2022. And I think they're targeting, Schumer said he wants a vote real soon on this thing. So I think that's going to be one of the focal points coming from the Democrats, because I think that ties into the election in Georgia with Stacey Abrams. I really believe.
Oh man, that's a sore spot for us Republicans. And here's the thing. So that's why he had to make the case, and that's why Democrats are putting all this on the January 6th speech, because, he ended this with, he's mad because he lost. He can't take that he lost and that 80 however million people didn't vote for him. And then he had to go on to say, and it was the biggest turnout in all of U.S. elections, which is true. The thing is, no one from this side can see how that's possible with a guy who always undercuts every speech by saying, well, they told me not to say that. Well, I have to go. Should I say this? I mean, so this is what everybody voted for. So,
wow, but you just got animated, man.
But he had to say all of that just so he can start this wheel turning about this voting right, which we all know is Q or code for ballot harvesting.
So I thought
enter Stacey Abrams.
I thought that speech was one
garbage.
I thought the speech was one piece. What about one thing? Getting Trump to say something, because everybody was counting on him to say something January 6th, and he canceled the press conference.
Exactly.
Because Biden's in office because he's not Trump, and so all he needs to do is remind people of why you voted for me. And if I can get Trump out front, if I can get Trump mixed in, I don't have to worry about the issues. Now, it may not be the best way and the traditional way we've campaigned in America, because you've not had that. But the idea from the Democrat side is, if you just mix in Trump, it's enough to offend people so that they vote against whatever Trump is in. So that's kind of why I thought that was a bait speech to try to get him to come out the corner.
And I'm glad Trump has enough people in his ear, and I think he's learned, because he would have come out swinging.
Well, the old put Trump, out a pretty testing.
Yeah, but that it's one thing for him to press statement that someone's going to review.
Remember now, he doesn't have a lot of ways to get his message out.
See, that's what I'm saying. So if this guy is so bad, you don't really have to do this. And I said it before. If somebody is so bad and the world hates him, why are you still censoring the guy? Why keep your foot on the guy's neck if he's that bad?
Oh, no. People like bad people. I'm not saying people don't like. That's really the problem.
But
and
okay.
that's really one. I'm going to say it like this, and everybody go ahead and mark your tapes, get your emails going. That's one of the greatest flaws in democracy. It has nothing to do with right, wrong, or what's best.
Well,
it has to do with what people like, and people, people like Trump. I mean, I think he got
people. How many?
He's gotten the second most number of votes ever in an election.
He really has the most. But go ahead.
Yeah, but he's gotten the second most number of votes ever in an election. That's not because people don't like him. They do like him.
So
these people put their lives on the line for Donald Trump. There are people in jail. What did he say? Well, he said go home. No, we just stormed the Capitol for him. What do you mean go home? And now they're in jail.
That's the beauty of you said that. That's the double-edged sword of freedom. It really started from there.
Let's not confuse let's not confuse democracy and freedom. That's a whole different issue.
Well, they had a choice. They exercised their freedoms to peaceably assemble and to protest. Now, they took it a bit too far. I'm going in and out. They took it a bit too far. But it still goes back to that. That's why he had to put a whole lot on the speech so he can get to this point about the voting rights.
All right. So you don't think pushing the voting rights bill will be a jump start going into the 2022 midterms that benefits Democrats?
Well, it'll benefit them because it goes back to saying, well, this is how we got this guy elected. Because you have to say that. This is how this guy, who's not Trump, got elected by the way we did this voting system. But here's the biggest issue. You don't want people, and it's always been policy procedure, and I guess law, like you can't influence someone's vote at the polling place. You can't go up there and tell them who to vote for. But this Voting Rights Act says, but it's okay if I send somebody to your house to help you with the ballot. And guess what? Don't even worry about it. I'm going to take it in for you, too. Don't even worry about it. You meant to put the Democrat right here. Don't worry. I'm going to take this in for you.
Watch me now. I don't think there's ever been an issue with people helping people vote. The issue has always been obstructing people's vote. And that's what you're referring to at the ballot box. You don't want people there.
That's not what I was referring to.
Well, let me walk you through history then, because that comes from people staging objections to people voting at the ballot box.
Well, let's just have voter ID then. We can have vaccine ID.
We have voter ID.
Okay, so what's the issue? Well, let's issue the voter ID laws.
Because you already have voter ID.
Well, you already have people helping people with votes. Why pass this voting rights act?
Whoa. These are because there are state laws being passed arbitrarily that's going to end up with individuals in different states and different counties all over the country having different criteria. That's where the big issue is. For example, let me take you back.
But we got 50 different states, right? In the state law?
Watch me. But we got one America. So when you come to federal elections, it should be uniform. And I don't say city of Tampa, handle your votes like you want to handle them. But when it comes to federal elections and the presidency and the Senate and Congress, it should be uniform, like the state of Florida. And the reason you did that was because there were states, and mainly in the South, where they had different rules about voting.
Literacy tests. Yeah.
Not just that, a bunch of crap. I know your granddaddy was left-handed. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff out there about voting rights. So they had to get uniform so that as a country, one of the things that really, and people resist this somewhat, on the Republican side, based on this ego-sized concept of individualism, there has to be some level of uniformity of sameness. We all fall under the same federal tax code. There needs to be some dynamics that are federal, that are standardized. So at least in that format, and if I don't like where locally, like for example, the local voting rights in Texas, then I can move to Montana and have it differently, though. So,
but don't you guys have like the House and the Senate and the presidency? What are you guys afraid of about these? So what you can't control is the governors. So what are you guys afraid of, really? I mean, because you guys have
It's not
everything.
a fear. It's a concept going back to something what I said earlier when I gave out the list of democratic principles, abandoning constitutional principles. This idea of, because voting's never went backwards in America. Voting has always expanded. If you think about it, first you start with only white male landowners can vote. And then you go from that to a different criteria, more people. So voting rights has always expanded, not contracted. The other issue I'm trying to figure out, Professor, is what role will the virus play in the midterm elections? Who does it benefit? Republicans?
It's always benefit you guys, because you guys will go, hey, stay home. They want you to get sick. Don't worry about it. We're going to send somebody to your house to pick it up anyway. So, you guys just do it like that.
Because we want people to be alive because you can vote when you're
alive. Stop it already. You couldn't get it with the Omicron because guess what? Omicron turned out to not to be as potent as you guys thought it was, or you guys have to admit maybe there's some type of herd immunity that took effect.
I don't think that there is a more cautiousness, it seems to be, and responsibility coming from the Democratic side as it relates to the virus. But because we're making all this up on the fly, I don't know that anybody's right or wrong. I don't know really, I don't know who's right or wrong. All I know is people are trying. I think maybe we'll try this, let's try that.
So now it's all about if I try, because Fauci's just been wrong about several things that he's had to come and say, now I represent science. Well, if that's the case, then science is wrong.
But science is constantly growing, and
it's imperfect, right?
I would applaud this. It takes a lot of courage to change your position. Particularly somebody as out front as he has been, 10 days to 5 days. Why?
It don't take a lot of courage to just be wrong. I was just wrong.
I would say wrong. Based on what we have now, here's my conclusion. And now we have more information. Let's base it on that. Okay, we have more information, and as we go, I think it takes a lot of courage though to continue to evaluate. The one thing I'll accept is we don't know, and anybody who says they do know, I think it's getting way, way ahead of themselves. And the more you do that, the more boxed in you are in what your options are. I don't think this is the last iteration of this. It'll change somewhat, and hopefully we'll get to a point where I think this gets treated like the flu. But then what we're going to find out, Professor, is a lot of people die from the flu. Like, I didn't know people died from the flu until my stepfather died from the flu. I thought, wait a minute.
How long ago was that?
He died like 99, somewhere in there. But he died like really quick. He got sick on Friday. He was dead on Sunday.
Normally died from pneumonia.
It was a list of things, but one of them on there was got the flu, and I was like, wow, people die from the flu, and die quick. But real quick, if that is the case.
And that's always the case, and this is how it comes. I'm glad you said that. This is how it comes with COVID. Right now, we know that the elderly are the most prone to death when we talk about COVID.
Yeah.
We've had Fauci have to walk back. Well, we counted COVID wrong. When they presented, they didn't have it, but they contracted it here. I mean, with all this, but in the meantime, I've already got people fired up, and they're so sensitive because this person's not as sensitive to COVID, and my auntie died, and it was all wrong anyway.
Here's one thing I would say, though. I don't know if anybody died because they were required to wear a face mask. Nobody died. Everybody died because they were required to stand 6 feet away.
You don't know if anyone died because
they had to wear a
face mask. Required to wear a face mask.
Put on a face mask. Oh my God!
Okay, well let's take that point, because now the cloth face mask does not work according to Fauci, who said initially the face mask not going to do anything. Then he came back. You need the face mask. Now he's saying you need the N95 face mask.
I said this when Biden came in office. I would have fired everybody. Running.
Okay, well that's a fair statement I've heard, because Fauci should have been gone.
I would have treated like we treat most of our top agencies. Take everybody out, put in new people. But the fear was, by doing so, it would have looked like it was politicized. That he's putting in his person to say what he wants.
When was COVID not politicized? When it came out, remember you guys were trying to impeach a sitting president when it hit. And then you politicized it. Well, this guy wasn't doing anything when it hit. Remember? I was trying to save my job.
Let me say. I mean, I think we're even in saying Democrats and Republicans will politicize anything that they think is a benefit to them. Like now, I think the thing that's starting to be politicized more and more is the testing. It had missed being politicized, but now, after our wonderful governor let so many tests expire without being used, and now we're not going to use testing. Professor, listen, we're almost out of time. Closing thoughts on your mind as we go into next week.
Well, hopefully next week we'll hear more about this Supreme Court case, because they just heard the vax mandate. And that's big, because everything, like you said, if COVID doesn't go away, and no one really thinks it is, you don't have to be anywhere near scientific, just halfway bright. It's not going to go away. So what comes out of the Supreme Court next week, I don't know if it's going to be next week or not, but what comes out of the hearing is going to be, I think, it impacts everything. Everything that we do. Everything that I do as a professor, it impacts.
I would say this. I want the Supreme Court to... We need to put I think, limit a little bit what the government's able to do. I think government is running rampant, and one of the problems with that is it gives people a false sense that government can solve all problems, and it can't. I think the more apt the government is to say to individuals, you know, you all have to take on some individual and personal responsibility for whatever it is that you're dealing with. I don't know what it may be. Don't look to us to come up with a mechanism. For example, I have rules at my office regarding COVID. I could care less what the government says. I could care less. And guess what? I change those rules however I want to change them. How we've gone from everybody wear a mask to mask in the common areas, to the doors being locked and no one inside, to you're inside if you can prove you're vaccinated, to know you can't come inside. I mean, you know, and nothing wrong with that. Let private companies make their own decisions.
Really?
And I think companies make their own decisions. And so I'm not a big fan of the mandate. I want to thank everybody for listening. In Touch News Radio. Professor Seabrook, wonderful job. See you all back next week on In Touch News Radio.
All right.